My first guest today is a multiple Emmy and Golden Globe nominee who will turn 90 this year and is still acting, with 4 upcoming movie and TV projects on the horizon. Miss Marion Ross began her acting career in 1954 at Paramount Studios and appeared in classic movies along the way like Lust for Life, Some Came Running, and Operation Petticoat. And, of course, she has numerous television roles to her credit, but she's ultimately best remembered as one of TV's most beloved moms, Marion Cunningham, on TV's Happy Days. She has a new memoir out called My Days, Happy and Otherwise. It's a great honor to welcome Marion Ross to the program today. Thanks so much for coming on.
And where are you talking from?
We are in New Jersey. We are in Teaneck, New Jersey.
Oh, I went to an autograph signing in New Jersey.
Yes, probably Parsippany.
Yes, I did, yes.
Teaneck is best known for being the birthplace of Ricky Nelson. Ozzie and Harriet lived here with David and Ricky before they moved out to Hollywood. So it only makes sense that I'm speaking to you today because it's all about families and Mother's Day and all that. And I have to ask you about this new memoir because this seems to have come out of nowhere. Was this something that was percolating inside you for a long, long time?
No, my son said to me, my son Jim Meskimen said, "No, Mother, I'm bringing this author, David Laurel, to your house, and he's going to write a book about you." I said, No, I'm not. I'm not going to do that. No. So they tied me up, and then the next thing I know, he's recording. So it is in my voice.
Right.
Isn't that nice? Otherwise, I never would have done it because I can't sit down that long. You know what I mean? I gotta jump up and do things all the time.
Right. Well, as I look over your career here, I pretty much have your resume in front of me. There are so many things here. Was it a case of where he would just go down the list and ask you about movies and TV shows, or did you specifically have things you wanted to talk about?
Well, he would. I've told many stories during my lifetime, so I have a lot of stories well worked out inside me. So it was easy for him just to get me going, tap into these various phases of my life.
You started out as a contract player at Paramount, and that had to be right around the time that the studio system was starting to dismantle itself, I guess, and television was moving in.
I was a little ahead of it. I mean, C.B. DeMille he was just doing the greatest show on earth. And Billy Wilder was there. These people would be walking on the lot. And when you went in the dining room, Marlene Dietrich would come sweeping in, and it was, and all of our pictures were up on the wall. At the end of the room was a big photograph of Victor Mature as Samson bringing down the temple, holding it, and right around the corner is sitting C.B. DeMille and the old man, Mr. Zucker, who was the head of Paramount, and all of us little starlets and stuff. Our pictures were up there too.
Were you ever starstruck when you met like a star?
Oh God, I couldn't be in that room, and we had a special table called the Golden Circle, and that's where we sat, and the young starlets and things, and who could eat, and totally starstruck. They were filming. I remember they were filming Stalag with William Holden.
Oh, 17, Stalag. Yeah.
Because I remember walking onto a set one day, and of course it was all these guys. Well, I got out of there fast. That was not a place for a young starlet to be walking into.
Right.
Oh.
Can I ask you if you have any memories of working on the Glenn Miller story?
Oh, many. In fact, here I'm playing June Allison's friend or something.
Yes.
And at noon, there was no one for me to have lunch with. So this was at 20th Century Fox. So I went, and sitting at the counter was Louis Armstrong, Cozy Cole, Bonnie Bigard, Louis Armstrong and his jazz guys, all sitting at the counter. So I sat at the counter right next to Louis Armstrong, and he talked to me and was nice to me and told me things. Can you imagine?
Fantastic.
God.
With a legend right there.
Absolutely.
another film, same year, Sabrina. You mentioned William Holden before.
Well, you know what was interesting is that we had a very special place in Paramount where we'd go to be made up and have your hair done, and it was, for us starlets and stars.
Right.
And one morning, the girl sitting under the dryer next to me, and then she got up and up and up and up. It was Audrey Hepburn, and she was just my age. I was 22. She was 22. She had come to do a Roman holiday. Well, and she was charming, like you want to die. She was so wonderful. And that's something. So I was always kind of plump, so I went right out and got 2 candy bars and ate them right away.
I'll tell you, this is great. I could just throw these titles out. One more movie before I move on to Happy Days.
Yeah, what?
I'll tell you what. I interviewed Mamie Van Doren about this film because she's also in it. Teacher's Pet, 1958, with Clark Gable and Doris Day. Now, Mamie Van Doren said that she just did not get along with Doris Day, so I'm wondering if you had a good experience with Doris Day.
I played Doris Day's secretary.
Right.
So I was not any threat to Doris Day, I'll tell you. So we got along great, and there was Clark Gable. Oh,
yes.
Well, did my mother love Clark Gable? I love Clark Gable. My daughter loved Clark Gable. I mean, Clark Gable. So I thought it was Easter time. So I went up to Clark Gable's stand-in. A man he called himself Alabama. So Alabama. So I said, well, here, will you take this colored egg? Because I colored an egg for Easter, and I wrote on there, MR, love CG. So then I was afraid to give it to him. So Alabama gives it to Mr. Gable, and Mr. Gable, gave me made a lovely gesture toward me. It was fine. So then I actually was in a scene with Clark Gable, and I said, what do I call you? I can't call you Clark Gable. He said, you may not get to call me anything, teasing me. So anyway, I have a lovely picture with him.
You're supposed to put me down for an evening conference. Tomorrow night it'd be good for me.
No. Tomorrow night, Dr. Pine. Saturday night, Dr. Pine.
What's with this Dr. Pine? Doesn't she feel well?
You're Tuesday at 9:30.
Oh, 7 would be better for me. Perhaps we could have dinner together, and,
9:30.
You must have been swooning.
I was.
Right.
No, I have met many stars, and you sort of kind of get over some of them.
Sure.
But no, Gable, no, you don't get over that.
Now, you had and continue to have an incredible TV career, and you appeared on everything. Hawaii Five-0, Perry Mason, The Lone Ranger, Burns and Allen. I mean, any show you can think of. But when you were cast as Mrs. Cunningham on Happy Days, you went from being a familiar face on TV to a beloved character on television. And what was it like for you when Happy Days became the phenomenon that it was?
Well, it was mind-blowing because, first of all, the Fonz, the great Henry Winkler, walked off with that show in his pocket,
Right.
And Ron Howard could take it like a gentleman. Plus, they were in the contracts, no matter what Henry got, Ron got.
Right.
So they were 50-50 that way. So what would happen, people would come to the set and they would say, well, and where's Marion? Oh, yeah, I see. Okay. I was the mother. Who cares? I was like...
everybody loved Mrs. C, though.
I think people like the Beatles would come to our set.
Right.
We were huge.
And I know it's getting a lot of attention in your book that initially Tom Bosley and yourself didn't really, I wouldn't say that you didn't get along. He just wasn't really all that thrilled at first.
I would say he didn't like me.
Okay, all right, we'll just say that. He just didn't like you.
So, and Tom Bosley, my God, he had won the Tony on Broadway for Fiorello.
Sure.
When he was like 26, young man. And so he had a pretty big career because he and I are almost the same age, and we're in our early 50s at this point, like 50. So he didn't like me at all. Then, of course, I would try to nice him to death. Then he didn't like me even more.
Right.
So I got some needlepoint. I thought, I don't think I can small talk with this guy because, and yet in the scenes, we made a wonderful married couple. Sometimes if I tried to put my hand on him, he'd say, "Don't touch me."
Oh my goodness!
So, oh God, and I think I was going to the shrink at that time. I thought, what the heck is it that So, and yet we became very, 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 very good friends. And what I didn't realize, in his defense, at home, he had a very difficult situation. In fact, we finally learned that his wife was seriously ill, and she did die. So he was dealing with something,
Right. Well, that would explain it. He's bringing it on
Wouldn't
to the set.
Yeah. He's a lovely guy. Lovely guy.
I guess I've been working too hard. Listen, we'll discuss this while you're making dinner.
Did you hear that, Richard? Men are not the only ones who work hard, Howard Cunningham. After I fix your breakfast in the morning, who do you think clears the table and washes the dishes and scrubs the floor in there? And dusts and vacuums and does the laundry, irons your shirts, and mends your socks, and then chauffeurs Joni around, and then does the shopping, and then starts all over again so she can have dinner for you when you come home from hanging around the hardware store all day. Who, Howard? Who?
I got a terrific idea. Let's go out to dinner, Marion.
On a lighter note regarding Happy Days, I've always wanted to ask someone this question, and maybe you'd be the best person to answer. There was Richie, there was Joni, and there was Chuck.
Yes,
now, right. Chuck vanished after the first 2 years. So I'm asking you, as the matriarch of the Cunningham family, what the heck happened to Chuck?
Well, we literally had two Chucks through this through this effort. We did, and what a terrible family. We just didn't need him. So we used to make jokes among ourselves. We'd say, "Listen, when you go upstairs, if you see Chuck, don't pay any attention."
Oh, so so maybe that's it. Maybe Chuck was just there all the time, but he was in his room.
Oh, I think so.
There it is. So we solved that mystery.
One show, we pretended we were in Hawaii. We went on location to Malibu, and we're on the beach, and it may have been the one where the shark came. I forget.
Yeah.
Anyway, I know Tom said to me at one point, he said, "Don't look around. We're all sitting on the beach doing this scene." He said, "I think I see Chuck."
Oh, it's fantastic. And these stories and so much more are in your book, once again, My Days, Happy and Otherwise. And I want to thank you so much for agreeing to speak with us today. And I want to wish you all the best with this memoir.
Thank you, darling. I have a lot of fun talking to you. I appreciate you. You have such a wonderful attitude. You're a lovely person.
Well, thank you so much, and so are you, and have a great rest of your day. From the classic episode of Happy Days where Patsy Weber sings to Joni, and she develops a crush on him. I'm sure we all remember that episode. Well, the vocalist on that track and also the actor who played Patsy joins us now. Anson Williams is our next guest. And of course, outside of his role on Happy Days, he went on to become a prominent television director, working on shows like Sabrina the Teenage Witch and Beverly Hills 90210, Lizzie McGuire, some work for the Disney Channel. He's also an entrepreneur on a mission, and we'll talk about that in just a bit too. But first, let's welcome Anson Williams to the program.
Well, thanks for having me on. It's a pleasure.
You know, Marion Ross just mentioned this a little while ago, and I wanted to get the inside story from you. There is a photo that's been circulating online, and I don't think, up until a few years ago, people even knew this existed. But there's a photo of John Lennon visiting the set of Happy Days. You're all in Arnold's, and the whole cast is gathered around him. So can you remember anything about that day?
Yeah, that's a very interesting story. It was 1974, first year of Happy Days, and we weren't the huge hit that we became, but we were a hit, especially with the kids.
Sure.
And it was first year, and it was before we turned the show into a 3-camera live audience show. We shot like a regular movie.
Right.
And I remember it was a jury day. There wasn't a lot of us working that day, and it was early in the morning, and it was cold. And, you know, I walked, and back then you didn't have craft service like they have today. Back then you had Louis, who was the lot bookie, who was the electrician, right. And he also was in charge of putting up the craft service, which was a bowl of rotten apples and a big old tin of bad coffee. And you didn't dare tell him it was bad, you know. Right, you don't tell Louis that.
Yeah.
So anyway, so I'm over there at the big tin of coffee getting a cup, and I see a man and cool-looking guy and a young kid, about 10 years old. I walk back with my wonderful coffee, and Donnie's there, and I tell him, "Hey, Don, there's a guy by the coffee there that looks just like John Lennon with some kid." And Donnie says, "Oh, yeah, John Lennon came here to hang out with us." It was John Lennon. It was John Lennon.
Right.
Nobody had told us he was coming to the set. In fact, he was there for something else, and he just came on the set. And he was with his son Julian, who was 10. He's over 50 years old now. It shows you how long ago.
Right.
He was 10 years old, and he came on the set, and we were like flabbergasted. Well, after 10 minutes, he just was one of us. And he was so shy, but so nice. And he's doing little caricatures for all the crew members, signing John Lennon. Not us, though. We're professionals.
Right.
We don't ask for that. These guys could buy a house now with the caricatures.
Exactly.
We get nothing. We didn't ask for an autograph. But all of a sudden, the executives at Paramount heard about it, and a photographer came down to the set. That's the picture you see. So that's all we got. We got a picture. But he spent the entire day on the set, and was just the nicest, most tactile, good guy you'd ever want to meet. And honestly, when I was 12 years old, and I was hearing, you know, "She loves you, yeah, yeah, yeah."
Right.
When I was just a number in the world, almost, you know, who would have ever thought that you'd be spending a day with one of those heroes that actually knew who you were? You know?
Yeah. Well, you never know who's watching.
Yeah. So who knew? What are the odds? You know.
Right.
So, yeah. So that's it. That's the picture you see, and in that picture you'll see that Henry doesn't even have his leather jacket yet.
Right.
He was still wearing the windbreaker, and the man in there's our director Jerry Paris. There's Ron. There's Don. There's myself, and then there's a very lucky guest actor, and I can't remember his name.
But he's probably got that doodle, and he's selling it, you know.
And he probably went for the doodle.
Yeah.
You know. Oh, not us. Oh no. Well, I'll tell you. Here's another one. You know, the Fonz had 4 leather jackets. You know, backups and everything.
Right.
And one went to the Smithsonian. Or was it 3? One went to the Smithsonian. One went to Henry. Oh yeah, there were 3. One went to the Smithsonian. One went to Henry. There was one left. It was the last day of Happy Days. They're wrapping up everything. I'm walking by, and Mickey, who was the head wardrobe guy, said, "Hey, Anson, you want this?" And it was the leather jacket.
Oh.
I go, nah. Now that would have been 2 houses.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Now, when that show went from the first few seasons where it was shot more like a film, and then it went to a 3-camera show and a live studio audience, is that really when that show sort of exploded into national consciousness?
Totally. The first season was 1 camera, And we were in the top 20 most of the time, 15, 18. And then the second season, actually we came in mid-season. And then the next year was a full season. And by the end of the season, we were down to 48th place. And we were on the block for cancellation. And Fred Silverman had come over to take over the network. And he and Gary Marshall spoke, and they gave us, and also we as a group went out there on our own and promoted the show during reruns, and it went up a little bit. So they gave us another chance, but Gary decided to turn it around, make it 3-camera, change the whole tone of the show, make it live audience, and put Henry up front,
right,
which Ron agreed to. And so it was really an experiment. So we came back, the third, actually second and a half season. And that year we exploded. We became number one in the world. I mean, we had 58 shares, 62 shares, 68 shares, 67 shares.
Wow.
Over a fourth of the country would watch us every Tuesday night, not including everyday syndication,
And you were kind of like your own Beatles at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It was you couldn't get in a more watched television show.
Yeah.
I mean, it was, at the time, it was the most watched show in history.
We're talking with Anson Williams today on the Vintage Rock and Pop Shop. And the passage of time is a funny thing. Happy Days was made in the 70s, and it was about the 50s, and people were still watching it into the 80s and the 90s and the 2000s. Now you're getting people who, in 2018, are nostalgic for when it was 1988 and they were watching a rerun of a show that they saw originally in 1978, which was about 1958, if you follow that logic. I mean, it's just a show that's just going to keep going and going.
Well, it was all because it was always old.
Yeah,
it was. It's a period of our history. The 50s that will always be popular. It just will always be the music that will never go away, and we just lucked out being part of that, being able to represent that. So it's fortunate because it will. It'll definitely. I think it'll be around for my great grandkids. So, but I'm just a small part of it. I mean. It's a tremendous group of talent there.
Oh,
from directing and writing and cast members, everything.
I want to get into a topic that I know is near and dear to your heart, and it's the topic of drowsy driving. Now, we hear a lot about drunk driving and distracted driving, but drowsy driving is an epidemic in this country, and we don't hear much about it.
Well, that's just it's just because it hasn't gotten media attention. And what's so horrific is it's catastrophic. It's not just a minor thing. It's up there with guns. There's more deaths and more accidents and more tragedies than both drunk driving and medicated driving combined.
Wow.
In 2012, the National Sleep Foundation did a study, and there's more now, but back then, they found there were at least 168 million drowsy drivers. That's almost half the population.
Wow.
And 1 out of 5 admitted to falling asleep. Over 1 out of 5 were the accidents caused. $12 billion a year. Families being torn apart. Husbands not coming home. Kids not coming home. Mothers not coming home. Not because they were driving, because they were hit.
Right.
So, and the way I got involved was actually years ago. I was directing a show called Slap Maxwell, and we were on location in a local desert outside of Los Angeles called Palmdale. And it was a very hot day, very difficult shoot. I was exhausted. I'm driving home, and the next thing I knew, I blacked out. I fell asleep. I woke up a few seconds later bouncing around in the desert, and I was just very lucky I didn't kill myself.
Wow.
And my uncle, actually my second cousin, but I've called him uncle since I was born, was Dr. Henry Heimlich, who created the Heimlich maneuver. And he passed away a year ago last December, but he was very, very influential in my life. And he was an expert on sensory connection of the body. And when I told him about what happened to me, he said, Anson, cut up lemons, keep them with you. If you know you're having an exhausting day, whatever. If you start feeling tired, bite into it. He said the citric acid with the sour lemon will hit the lingual nerve on top of your tongue, and the automatic reflex reaction of the body is adrenaline. And boop, you're up, you're alert instantly, nothing in your system, nothing to harm you, nothing to screw up your sleep pattern, but instantly make you clear, make you alert, and save your life. So I did that. For years, I'd cut up lemons. And then through the years, along with entertainment, I got involved in the product business. I loved inventing or putting a group together to invent problem-solving products that have never existed before. I just loved creating, products that were really beneficial to society. And a few years ago, I was researching drowsy driving, and that's when I found all these statistics, just how catastrophic it was. I mean, so many unnecessary deaths, just horrific. So I called Dr. Heimlich with an idea, and I said, Hank, what if I had the right amount of citric acid with the right amount of sour lemon, water, a little preservative, put it in a spray drop? And what if if you started feeling tired, you just sprayed the top of your tongue and hit the lingual nerve? He got very excited, and he said, oh, my gosh. He said that would be stronger than a lemon because it's a direct hit.
Right.
Absolutely do it. Absolutely it will work. Promise me you'll do it. So we did it. We created Alert Drops. And if people go to alertdrops.com, they can read all about drowsy driving. They can read about Alert Drops. It's all natural, how the body wakes the body. We've been honored by the United States Congress, by the California State Senate, by the City of Los Angeles. But more important than that, you'll see the testimonials of lives that have been saved, tragedies avoided. Already, it's only been around about 6 months, and so many people have been helped, all because of Dr. Heimlich's brilliance. And I'm very passionate about it because with all the confusion in the world today and so many things we don't feel we can control, we can control this. We can stop today one of the most catastrophic problems in the country.
And it's something that obviously it happens to truck drivers who are driving long hours. And, of course, this is something that could be beneficial to them, but it's not just truckers. It's everyday people, too. A lot of people working 2 or 3 jobs.
Well, the majority of deaths are regular families, regular people. Again, there's more fatalities in drunk driving and medicated driving combined. That's how serious it is. Also, we're finding people are really, really benefiting in their jobs. I mean, a lot of jobs, whether it's heavy machinery or working with dangerous machines or doctors or nurses or there's a lot of people get exhausted on the job that need to be alert, and it's been working tremendously.
As we start to wrap up here, I want to give people the opportunity to, again, it's alertdrops.com, but also you have a website or Facebook people can follow you?
Yeah, I'm really bad with social media. Oh, I am so bad. So bad, but I do have a Facebook, and it's public.
Okay.
So if you just go to Anson Williams at Facebook, I'm there. I'm there. And if they go to alertdrops.com, I'm there too.
Anson, I want to thank you so much for coming on and chatting with us about not only, obviously, the show business side of things, but also this very important issue. And again, until I had started reading some of the literature about this, it came as a shock to me. And I guess for people listening now, it probably is going to come as a shock to them, too. But the more people are shocked, the better as we get the word out.
And what happened, it's funny, most people, it wakes them up. They go, I felt, oh, my God, I almost felt. It makes sense to them because most people have had an experience.
Yeah.
Most people have had that experience. And there's also falling asleep with your eyes open. Is it microsleep? I forgot what it's called. But you know how you're driving and all of a sudden you don't remember how you got there?
Right. Yes.
Whoa, I don't remember these 3 exits that I passed. That's a microsleep. And it's literally sleeping with your eyes open. So...
Again, I want to thank you so much for appearing on the show and have a great rest of your day.
You too. Thank you so much.
Our life